Hello and welcome to Suxxesso in a Nutshell, our series of short videos highlighting the extensive functionalities and outstanding usability of our SAP test automation product, Suxxesso Tool Suite. Today's topic is workflow tests, when we build a workflow involving different authorizations and we want to set up a test case covering the whole workflow process. As you can see, we have already started a session in our SAP demo system, and we have also started Suxxesso Test Pilot, the main component of our tool suite for the setting up of test cases, their modification and execution. In order to begin setting up the test case, we put Test Pilot in recording mode, and for this demonstration we will use transaction ME51N. This transaction is for the creation of purchase requisitions, and of course we need to provide some of the parameters for this purchase requisition. First of all, the material, the quantity that we need, the plant where it is needed, and the requisitioner. We can see that both SAP and Test Pilot have correctly accepted all the parameters that we provided. Now, by clicking on the Save button, we execute this transaction and we get the success message from SAP that a purchase requisition with this number has been created. Those who have seen our other videos know how easy it is with our product to verify such SAP test status messages by clicking on Insert New Step and selecting Verify Message from the pop-up menu. This verification gives us not only the technical ID number for the success message, but also the purchase requisition number, which we will need in our further work on this test case. And the next stage of our workflow is the processing of this requisition, which is done with transaction ME57. And immediately here, as you can see, we have to provide the purchase requisition number, which is with 45 in the end, and we have to provide the scope of list, which in this case is ALV, and then we open this requisition for processing. And in order to process this, of course, we have to select it by selecting the row where it is situated, because there may be many more other requisitions which need to be processed. And after we have selected it, we click on the Edit button and we open Item Detail, where we want to provide the purchasing organization and the vendor. And we see that these parameters have also been correctly identified. With this we can now execute this transaction too, and we got the success message, which we can also verify and move to the next step, which is actually the creation of the purchase order from this purchase requisition, which is done with transaction ME21N. Here again we have to provide the purchase requisition number, and we have the details, the parameters that have been provided by SAP for this requisition. Now we can execute the transaction and create the purchase order, but before that, because we are creating a test case, we want, of course, to verify some of the parameters, which is also done by clicking on Insert New Step and selecting Verify Field. And we want to verify, for instance, the requisitioner. We scroll to the left to find the other parameters, and also we want to verify the material and the number, the quantity that we have selected. With this, we have provided all the steps for the test case. We can execute the transaction, and we get the success message that a purchase order with this number has been created in the system. Of course, we can verify this message too. And with this, our test case is ready. We can exit recording mode in test pilot, and we need to set up the test case for future executions, and that means that we have to decide which parameters will be changed and which parameters will remain the same. And of course, the parameter which will definitely be changed is the purchase requisition number, because with each iteration of this test case, a new requisition will be created. So we click on the edit number, and we tell test pilot that this parameter should be considered a variable, and we provide a name for this variable, let's say purchase requisition number. We click on the apply button, and we see that this parameter has been created as a variable. The same, of course, variable should be taken over in the other transactions where we have the purchase requisition number. Here we also tell test pilot that this is a variable and it should use the same variable as created before. And the same for the next transaction, ME21N, where we have the purchase requisition number and we have to provide it as a variable, the same variable as before. With this, our test case is completely ready. Now we can run it many times, many iterations, but as we mentioned in the beginning, this is a workflow test case, and the different stages of this test case, of this workflow, are implemented by roles with different authorizations. And in order to define these roles, we go to the quick navigation button, and we see which steps are conducted in different roles. First of all, of course, we have to tell test pilot to open a new session manager, because this is a different transaction from the one which we had previously, and the same also for the next transaction. Now we have to select the steps which belong to the role which has an authorization to set up purchase requisitions, and these steps are 1 to 13 when the purchase requisition is actually created, and we click on the create role in this menu, and we see that this role has already been created. And this the next stage of the workflow will belong to a person or a role with the authorization to process purchase requisitions and to create purchase orders. And we create also the new role. Of course, we have also to define these roles, to provide the roles which have these authorizations, and we click on the edit button for this role, and provide the appropriate role here, which can create purchase requisitions, and the next role must have the authorization to process purchase requisitions and to create purchase orders, and this is the role manager. With this, our test case is already completely defined. We can close the quick navigation, and we can close also the SAP session, because Test Pilot must open new sessions for each of the roles we have defined with the respective credentials for each of these roles. Let's see how that works. In order to execute the test case, we click on the play button. We see a new session was opened, and then again a new session was opened, and all the steps were carried out. And in the end, we get a message from Test Pilot that the replay of this test case has been successful. That means that all the parameters have been provided correctly and the test case has been set up correctly. This is to show that with our product you can create test cases covering complex workflow processes with multiple roles and authorizations. With this, our demonstration is concluded. I hope this video has managed to convey to you not only the rich functionalities but also the excellent usability of Suxxesso tool suite. Thank you for your attention, and please check regularly for other videos in this series.